right, if you own real estate anywhere in or around the Boise area, or you'd like to own real estate in the future, this is the market update for you. We have the data in through the end of August 2024, and there's only two things I want to focus on this month. Number one is, where is inventory at, and where do we think it's going to be going? And number two, how is demand? How many buyers are out there looking to purchase homes? So if you want to know more about that, watch the rest of this video. All right, let's dive into the data. I'm going to zoom in here. For those of you that are just listening, I'll try and walk you through it, make sure you understand what we're talking about. If you're watching on your phone or laptop or whatever you're watching on, we're going to zoom in so you can see a little bit better here. We always take a look at these three metrics in depth. So the black line represents closed sales. The gray bar represents pending sales, and then this red line represents active listings. So how many active listings did we end the month of August for or with? What's interesting is, if you remember back in June, I kind of predicted that July inventory would go up, and that didn't happen. It actually was flat. It went down by 2 listings, which is nominal, but essentially it was flat. And then we've gone up going into the end of August, which is seasonally accurate. That's how we typically roll going into August. You know, you have the majority of homes that are on the market before the school year starts. A lot of people will decide to take their homes off the market once the school year starts. I would predict you'll see inventory drop in September. Obviously, time will tell, but I would assume that's going to happen, and not necessarily because we sold more homes. But because those people who might have been trying to sell their homes don't want to deal with showings, and during the school year, you're kind of back at it. You also have a lot of people that decide, you know what, I'm going to wait until later in the year or next year, and I'm gonna be looking at buying. Statistically or seasonally, I've been doing this 19 years now in our area, and we see a drop in September. And then we see October usually have a decent little pickup. And then, right up until about Thanksgiving. And then we really see activity slow down until about the middle to late January, depending on how heavy the winter is. So we'll talk about those different seasonalities and how they affect you as a buyer and a seller. So first of all, let's just look at the data. Last year, in August, we had 943 listings active. This year, we have 1,105. So that's an increase of roughly 15% or so. So nothing too wild. We also have more sales in August of 2024. So, only 2 more closed units, but we had significantly more pendings. In August 2023, we had 481 pending. August 2024, we have 557 pending. So that could be rate driven, by the way. We have seen interest rates, really cool off, get better for buyers. And back in August of 23, if I remember right, they were actually picking up a little bit. I think they peaked in September or October of last year. So, which is why October, I think, had such a slowdown in 2023. Because I think we did hit that peak, 7.5% or so. Right now, your 30-year fix is probably around 6.25, 6 to 6.25. It's significantly better than it was a year ago. So looking at these numbers, month over month, less closed sales in August by about 60 units or so, and more pending sales in August by about 7 or 8. So what does all this mean? Let's just talk seasonality for a moment. Typically, not everyone is affected by this, but a lot of people will be in a situation where school starts. They don't want to be messing with showings. They don't want to see things like that happening. They don't want to be going and looking at houses. They don't want to move their family, right? So we see activity slow down a little bit. It does pick back up in October, and I think there's a number of reasons why. I think, some people have calmed down. They were maybe upset they didn't get their home sold. They need to settle into the school year. Now they've got their rhythm down. It's not that big of a deal for them to relist their home. It's also not that big of a deal for them to maybe consider moving. And then we also have people moving in from out of the area as well for various reasons. But that seasonality is very interesting. You know, one thing that's happening right now is this election you might have heard of. We see a lot of people who just kind of freeze. You know, they're like, I don't know if I want this candidate elected or this candidate elected, or I don't know what this candidate will do or this candidate will do. You know, obviously you hear I'm going to move out of the country. I'm going to go live somewhere else. We hear all sorts of stuff if so-and-so gets elected. You know, setting all that aside, like it's a very real thing that people do take into consideration when they are making a large purchase. So we deal with that. We see a lot of people that are like, I'm going to wait and see how the election goes before I sell or before I buy or before I invest. And they're on both spectrums. They're like, I don't want to buy until I see how the election goes. Or they say, I don't want to sell until I see how the election goes. So not much we can do there. That just slows activity down. You also have something that's happening right now. You know, it's September 9th as I'm recording this. I think here in a week and a half, we have interest rates that are going to be, by all metrics that are counting it right now, they're going to be lowered. The Federal Reserve will meet and they will agree to lower interest rates. I've got a tool that I use, and I'll pull it up here and kind of show you what it looks like because it's pretty fascinating. And you can come back on this date, but take a look at this tool. So this is the CME group. And they basically track bond traders and the bets, quote unquote, that are being made on interest rates. So the current SOFR rate, secured overnight funding rate, or Federal Reserve rate, is 525 to 550. There's a 73% chance it gets lowered by 25 basis points and goes down to 500 to 525. There's a 27% chance it gets lowered by 50 basis points, which is 475 to 500. And there's some economic data coming out this week. So by the time you watch this video, you know, this could definitely change up or down. I would certainly encourage you to kind of take a look at this if you're interested in this stuff. But what does this exactly mean? Well, you know, the economy's cooling off and we're seeing, more unemployment go up. So we're seeing unemployment get to, it's been under 4% in the 3.5% to 3.6% range. Now it's over 4%. We're also seeing, inflation settle down based on the metrics that they track it with. You might be thinking, stuff's still really expensive. But the metrics they use, CPI, which comes out, I think, in 2 days. So on September 11th, we'll see the CPI data. And that will move these metrics as well. So what does this have to do with anything? Well, these rates are the rates at which banks borrow money. And then those banks can lend the money to you, and then they put a spread on that, a treasury spread or a yield. And that's what determines our 30-year fixed rate. And that follows the 10-year treasury rate. I'm not going to go too nerdy here, but if you want to look at this 10-year treasury yield, this is the number one indicator of interest rates right here. So you can see, this is CNBC's site, but you can see what's happened here for the last, let me see if I can make this bigger for you. Oops. You can see what's happened here over the last month, or 2 or 3 months. I mean, in May, we were at 4.7%. Rates at that time, by the way, were around 7.5%. Now we're at 3.7%, so we're a full percent lower. And now we're seeing rates in that, like I said, 6 to 6.25 range. So certainly something to keep an eye on. Getting back to demand, I just wanted to show you one last thing on this chart, and then we'll wrap this video up. But we are at 2.5 months of supply across all of Ada County. And if you zoom in here, some of the markets that are really, starting to see some issues are this over 2 million, over 1.5 and over 2 million mark. We got 10.5 months supply over 2 million, and we got 6.2 months supply over 1.5 million. We're also seeing quite a bit of negotiation on these properties. So their original list price versus their actual sold price on over 2 million is 5%. So they're discounting those properties at 5%, whereas the average for all of our homes in this area, it's discounting 2.4%, so about double the discount. So take those numbers in consideration if you're out, shopping for a home and negotiating. We are still seeing demand at certain price points. You get under 600,000, you're going to see demand. I mean, honestly, under 800,000, it's only 2.8 months of supply. If you get over, between 800 and a million, you're at 3.2 months of supply. We're starting to see that, there's homes that are priced right and they're selling quickly. Some of them are getting multiple offers, even at that price point. And then we're seeing homes that, are not priced correctly and they're sitting day after day after day after day. So what does this mean? If you're a buyer in this market, you want to make sure you have an expert that understands pricing. They can take a look at the pricing, they can pull comparables, they can tell you, what's trending in the market. It's one thing to look at the historical data and say, hey, your home is worth X. But it's another thing to say, hey, based on the historical data, your home is worth X, but the market's trending this way, which means we can negotiate for Y. This is where having an expert consultant on your side is critical. It's the same thing when you go to list your property. If you price your home incorrectly, a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to price it high and I can always lower the price. And you're not wrong. You can always lower the price. Here's the problem. You price it high and you lower the price, 30 or 60 days down the road. And you finally get to the price where it should have been. Those buyers come along and they say, gosh, why has it been on the market for 2 months or 3 months? Something must be wrong with it. No one likes it. I'm going to offer less. And so now you got to the right price, but that buyer is not going to pay your asking price, even though you've lowered it to what it should be. They're going to want to negotiate, and it's critical to get your price right. So, make sure if you're, referring an agent in this area, have them shop City of Trees Real Estate. We'd love to help you guys out and help your clients out. And if you are a buyer or a seller and you're watching this video and you're thinking, gosh, I really want a second opinion, my cousin's brother is a realtor and maybe I should talk to someone that does this every single day before I make such a big decision. So that's all I've got for this month's video. Stay tuned for next month's video. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, let us know. Otherwise, see you in a month.